What's up, everyone? Welcome back to Generation Sports, episode 10. We made it to double digits. So we appreciate everyone who's been watching or listening along. We really appreciate it. And hopefully you guys like this one, and there's more to come. Today we're going to start off with GoinYard. So some baseball things happening. Obviously, technology is supposed to, push the game forward. There's been a lot of rule changes in the recent years, and by far the biggest one is MLB Replay. But recently in this year, they've gotten some plays wrong. So what do you guys think? Is replay working with this Conforto play and then the play at the plate where he still hasn't touched home?
Well, the replays are supposed to cut back on human error. And I just see there being an issue now where we're still dealing with human error as far as reviewing these replays and what can be reviewed.
Yes. So
they definitely have some work to do to really refine it and get it working to where it's it's getting the calls right. That's the whole point of replay.
Yep.
If you're not going to get it right, then there's no point in reviewing plays, period.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with that. I feel like my biggest issue with the whole replay situation that's going on right now is just the fact that the call that's made on the field holds so much weight. And I understand, it's extremely hard for these umps and refs, depending on what sport you're playing in. And you're never going to be perfect. And, there's going to be missed calls. But if you look at a situation like the Conforto play, or even the play at the plate on Sunday Night Baseball, both of these plays, there's situations where the call on the field had to stand because that initial call held the weight over what the people, in Secaucus were, what they would have decided. So it's just an issue of the play on the field. The whole reason for the challenge is to correct calls that are made on the field. Mm-hmm. So if the call on the field is holding too much weight and it's too hard and you need too much evidence, or it has to be extremely definitive or whatever, like in this case I thought it was for both of these plays. But it just seems like there's too many hoops you have to jump through in order to make the call right, when the whole point of replay is to make the calls right in the first place.
My whole issue, and I was watching the Sunday night baseball game live, is there's an old saying: if 4 or 5 people say that you're a liar, okay, you may get away with that one. But when there's 500 people or 5,000 people saying you're a liar, then you must be a liar. And this is where the replay showed. I'm watching the game live, so it was a bang-bang play. So I didn't have a problem with the calling them out or safe. It didn't matter because it was that close. But when you showed the replay and they showed it from every angle showed that he never touched the plate and he was tagged. So I had it 100% in my mind that they were going to change it, and it was never changed. So my thing is, what's the point of the replay if you see it? The evidence is there. And if you can't reverse that call because there's too much pride, because you don't want to make the ump look bad for making a bad call, he's human. He's going to make errors. Then get rid of it. Straight up, get rid of it.
I think both of these plays bring up two separate issues with replay. So the Conforto one is what Jay was saying about what's reviewable and what's not, because intent is not reviewable there.
Yeah.
So they went to replay to make sure it hit him, which it did.
Yeah.
So in that case, replay did, quote unquote, the right thing. They made the right call by what the rules are right now. Mm-hmm. Now with the other play, the Sunday Night Baseball at the plate, I think what's wrong is the umpires are policing themselves. So that's where, and again, I'm not saying any individuals are purposely not making calls, but if it's really, really close, they're going to go with their partner on the field.
Obviously.
What Tim was saying, the play on the field holds that weight. So I think those are the two different things. Me, honestly, I would get the umpires out of the replay room and have MLB executives. I've even heard people suggest retired players being the ones in the replay room making the calls.
That's interesting.
Obviously, they need to know the rule book
Yeah.
because,
Yeah.
especially out of all sports, baseball's rule book is the most dense and has the most weird, wonky rules.
That's the thinking with having the umpires police themselves. Is who knows the rules better than they do.
Well, they're supervisors.
Well, yeah. So
who
I do like the idea of
the ones that should be making the calls if you go that route.
That's true. That's true. I mean, I like the idea of former players,
former managers too.
Former managers,
players, managers,
Yeah.
and then so you have those umpire supervisors in the room. At least one of them is in the room at all times when making a call.
Mm-hmm.
So even if you have a former player or something like that, and it's a crazy wonky play, every station has a rule book, and you have the umpire supervisor to walk you through some of these, crazier plays.
Yeah.
Obviously, speed comes into play at that point because we want replays to be done as quickly as possible.
Yeah,
but yeah, it needs to be addressed. I feel like, and the only way I see, and I didn't read any reports or anything, the play at the plate being safe if he didn't touch home is if the catcher never touched him.
Yeah, yeah.
But to me, it looks like he did tag him.
Yeah.
He sure did. Yeah.
Yeah, it's, I don't know, man. This MLB replay has been kind of sketchy ever since it started. And there's definitely some glaring holes in the system right now, but it's definitely something that can be fixed. If it's gone about the right way. So, I'm still hopeful because I think replay is necessary because it helps the game and it makes calls right. Well, at least it's supposed to. But if it can get polished up, it would definitely be a good thing for the game of baseball.
Yeah. So going from these plays and rules that we might want to be changed, there are some new rule changes being tested out. So here we have a graphic for those just listening. I'll read it. The Independent Atlantic League of Professional Baseball will experiment with two revolutionary rule changes for the 2021 season. So limiting the team's use of the designated hitter position to only when the starting pitcher is in the game. And then increasing the length of the pitcher's rubber by 1 foot. So it'll be 61 feet, 6 inches instead of the current 60 feet, 6 inches. What do you guys think of that?
I mean, if the reason they're doing it is to get more strikeouts and, more hitting in the game, then I'm for it. Baseball, at some point, it could get real boring. If you're not a baseball fan, then, a 1-0 game is not going to excite you unless it's a no-hitter going on or something like that. But I don't think that 1 foot is going to make a difference. I really don't. This is where the 1 foot might get a guy that's throwing hard, for you to be able to hit him a little easier. But the breaking pitch is going to make the breaking pitch, crazy. Is giving it the pitchers with the good breaking balls more opportunity to get the breaking ball over the plate.
More rotation on the ball.
Yeah, more rotation, but it also brings in the command issue.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Especially for breaking balls because you're so used to it breaking at a certain point and hitting the catcher's glove, it might affect some command issues potentially.
I know that one of the things that they did years ago was they lowered the mound. And it did affect, the game. But I don't know if by moving the mound further back if it's going to do much. But, I mean, anything to make the game a little more, exciting, then, hey, I'm all for it.
Now, do you think it has more to do with a boost in offensive numbers, or do you think it's more of a moving the pitcher back a little bit with exit velocity, being so high throughout the league, and line drives, we're seeing a little uptick in line drives hitting pitchers. Do you think that factors into it at all?
That might factor into it a little, but I think it's more of they want it to be more of an offensive baseball. They're more for the the 6-5 games than the 1-0 games.
Yeah, I agree with what both of you guys said. I think the moving the pitching rubber back has potential to be good and bad depending on what side you look at it. But I want to talk about this DH rule because I really like it, and I think it does a lot of good things. I think first of all, it encourages teams to leave their starting pitchers in games because guys aren't going complete games every day anymore. And, obviously you want to protect your pitchers and, conserve their arms. So many injuries, so many Tommy John surgeries. But it adds to the strategy of baseball, which makes baseball such a great sport. It makes you want to keep your pitcher in games longer. And then after you take your pitcher out and you go to your bullpen, then that traditional National League strategy comes in where you're going to have to pinch hit and, you're going to have to shuffle around your lineup in order to win games. So I like how it's kind of like a mix of the AL and the NL, kind of like a fusion. I really like that addition, and I think it could be really helpful to the game of baseball.
Yeah.
So now, speaking on, like you just said, it's a mixture of AL and NL. Do you envision this rule being in place in both leagues?
That's something that wasn't clearly stated. Obviously, This is the testing, but I find it very interesting because of that. I'm very anti bring the NL, the DH to the NL, but this rule, I find it as a happy medium. Because there's still a lot of strategy. Because to me, in the AL, your manager is, for the most part, a glorified pitching coach.
Yes. Yeah. Basically, it's just sitting back and just waiting.
Managing the bullpen.
Yeah.
That's it. That's the majority of the game is managing the bullpen. Late in games, you might get a pinch hitter or, pinch runner, defensive substitution. So there is still a little bit more than a pitching coach. But game in, game out, a lot of the decision-making is literally just about pitching staff.
Yeah, it's like we used to joke that Joe Torre was asleep in the dugout in his Yankee run, He rarely had to do much with that team.
But I think adding this, aspect of, all right, if we pull this guy, we lose our DH, especially if, a guy's getting hit hard early in the game.
Yeah.
Do you leave him in a little longer? Yeah. Because, your DH might be one of your better hitters.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's another question I had also was when that move is made to take out the starting pitcher, do you flat out lose the DH or are you able to switch him onto the field and, it's a
like a double switch.
Yeah, like a double switch almost.
I would hope it's like a double switch. Yeah. Obviously, I don't know, but...
Well, it remains to be seen.
Yeah.
But I think that would be something interesting to move forward with.
Yeah. Unless your pitcher is your DH.
Well,
hashtag Shohei.
We'll talk about Shohei later.
and a guy like DeGrom. Now, DeGrom may never hit again, moving forward. And,
Well, 600.
Well, if, when DeGrom is pitching, whoever the DH is, they're going to be in there for the whole game.
That's true, too.
Yeah. I mean, I like that rule a whole lot. I definitely wouldn't mind seeing it in the NL, and honestly, I wouldn't mind seeing it in both leagues.
Yes.
Yeah, I agree.
I like it in both leagues.
It's a happy medium to find a middle ground between both leagues.
Yeah.
Where, the American League doesn't want to give up the DH, and the National League is a little hesitant on adopting it. So I think it's a nice middle ground.
Yeah, I agree.
And I think it keeps the Players Association happy as well.
Oh, yes.
Definitely. Yeah, because it's a move that, DH, a lot of people, at least fans, like the DH because, there's more hitting. And, you don't want to see pitchers just standing up there looking at 3 strikes.
And you're prolonging players' careers.
Yeah. Yep. And it also, once you take that starting pitcher out, it adds that element of strategy that the National League has seen all this time.
Well, the other thing is that then it makes the American League have to have that strategic manager also.
Yeah.
Because, you could win or lose a lot of games by taking out that pitcher early. And
Kevin Cash can't be taking out Blake Snell.
Yeah.
I mean,
subject.
Well, Cash don't got to worry about it no more.
Yeah.
Blake Snell's out of there. So
yeah. No, I definitely want to see this play out, and hopefully we can see this in the majors. It's much better than some of the rules that they currently implemented. That I'm not the biggest of fans of.
Yeah, I agree with that.
But we shall see if it actually works, like replay.
Let's see.
So moving on to the basketball court with buckets, we're going to start things off talking about the injury bug. So Jamal Murray recently injured, which adds to a long list of stars who've gotten injured, unfortunately, this season. Do we think it's impacted with the short offseason, the quick turnaround, with the COVID, then the bubble, short offseason, quick turnaround to the new season? What do you guys think of that?
Well, it's a little bit of a condensed season also. You're seeing more back-to-backs. You see a lot of players that won't play the second game of back-to-backs. And I think that's something that, was prevalent before we're having to deal with this COVID era of basketball. You have these athletes are in tip-top shape and everything, but they're still human, and they still need a routine that they go by, a certain amount of off-season time to wind down and relax and rest their bodies. So I think we're definitely seeing a negative effect in that sense.
Yeah, I'm just tired of seeing players get injured in games where the game is over and they're still in the game. Yeah. Your team is up by 20 with 2 minutes left in the game. Why you got your superstars in the game? This is where you go right to the end of the bench, and the guys that don't get any playing time, you put them out there. You can't risk hurting your guys over garbage minutes. It doesn't make any sense.
Hashtag garbage time?
Yeah. It doesn't make any sense at all. And this is what's happening. It's happening all over the league. It happened to Derrick Rose. You can't risk your star players like that.
Even a guy like Jamal Murray who just recently got injured. Mm-hmm. That game there was like 40 seconds left and the Nuggets were down like 10 points.
There was no reason to have him in the game.
And especially because Jamal Murray was coming off of a knee injury that had sidelined him a couple games prior to that. It was his first game back from injury. And, he was playing some pretty extensive minutes. And, obviously hindsight is 20/20. And if you look back on it, you're obviously going to take the guy out in that moment. But I definitely do think that the turnaround in between last year and this year is affecting a lot of these guys. You talk about the Heat and the Lakers who were in the NBA Finals last year. They just I think they had just over a month in between the finals and the start of the regular season this year. So it's just kind of insane. I can't imagine having to prepare and have a break and an off season and then just get right back into it so quickly. And I think it also leads to not only are the injuries bad, of course, for the players, but it also hurts the team a lot in the sense of even if a guy isn't out for the whole season, if a lot of your essential team members have these nagging injuries and they're in and out of the lineup all the time, it's hard to gain chemistry and consistency as a team. And, come playoff time, it's going to be hard to adjust. Like when you have a full squad, you look at teams like the Nets, and they have all the talent in the world, but it seems like they're just never healthy together. So, it might be a different dynamic come playoff time if they are, all healthy, and they just can't coexist as well because they're not used to playing with so many guys around them.
It's true. Well, you touched on the Lakers and Heat. With their short turnover time, they've had some really bad injuries this year. They've had a lot of nagging injuries. Yeah. Lakers are missing their best 2 players. The Heat were missing Butler for a stretch. I think that speaks volumes right there.
Then you look at a guy like KD, who came off one of the worst injuries. Yeah. And what you see a lot of these teams are doing is when the players are coming off of these injuries, they're limiting them to certain games and then giving them rest. They want to make sure that they heal properly. And I don't have an issue with that. The whole issue, again, for me, is playing guys minutes when they should be out there.
Yeah. Something that Tom Thibodeau seems to do all the time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
He's doing it with the Knicks. He's lucky. He's gotten lucky this year. Not much.
If you play for Thibodeau and you're not top 10 in the league in minutes, he don't like you.
Yeah.
That's it.
Definitely.
Like their whole team is usually, he usually burns his starters.
Yeah. Do you think that the NBA should try and cut back on back-to-back games?
Yeah, I absolutely think. I know there's been talks of shortening the season potentially. And then if you have the shortened season, you can keep it at the same length of days, but less games to really limit these back-to-backs. But the one big thing that the NBA teams have that some of the other sports don't is it's harder to schedule basketball because a lot of times so many other events are happening in these arenas.
Yeah, true.
These arenas are, in mostly, metropolitan areas, a lot of concerts. Sometimes there's hockey teams. Who is it? Is it San Antonio that has the circus or the Bulls? That the circus comes into town every year and they have to go on a 10-day road trip.
Well, look at the Knicks and MSG. There's tons of things.
Yeah, I think it's Chicago.
I think Chicago has the circus and San Antonio has the rodeo or something like that, where both teams have to go on like prolonged road trips every year. I'm maybe not this year with COVID, but typically they have to go on prolonged road trips
to accommodate those.
The venue. Because sometimes the team is renting their venue. It's not the same owner as well. So, it is difficult, but I think they should definitely try to limit the back-to-backs as much as possible.
Well, I would guess that, if the NBA was to make any type of scheduling changes in that aspect, that these arenas would work with them. I mean...
they're bringing in...
they're bringing in, I would guess, the most revenue based on what's happening.
You've never been to that rodeo.
Oh, that's true. That is very true. But I would guess that they're bringing in a ton of revenue, so these arena owners should look to work with them.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Another thing too, like going back to just the injuries and all these players, the players have definitely felt it, and they've been vocal about the scheduling this year. Even talking about the All-Star break. Like, a lot of guys adamantly were, against the All-Star break, and they didn't want the festivities because they just needed a break.
Yeah.
And, they had such a short off-season, and, that could take a toll on you physically and mentally. So, obviously these guys are the best at what they do, and, they make it look easy at times, but... it's really hard to stay that consistent for that long with not a whole lot of time to rest in between.
It's funny because when, the rookie players come in the league and they don't play that many games in college as they do in a pro, so usually towards the back end of the season they hit the wall where you see their numbers dropping and everything, and it's a lot of it has to do with jet lag, with being on a road trip and everything else, and it takes its effect. And this is where you got to know your players, and the players got to know themselves. They got to know their bodies. If they feel like hey, I need a break, then they need to let somebody know.
Well, they're also adding to the playoffs too, with the play-in, changing the first round. I don't know how many years ago that was, but it used to be best of 5. Now it's best of 7.
Yeah.
So it's added revenue for ownership. In that sense,
and it trickles down also to the players because they get a percentage of revenue.
Definitely. But what I mean, like,
at what cost?
shortening the season,
lengthening the playoffs.
Maybe there's something
that's
to
the
be
happy
had
medium.
There.
Yeah. Well, talking about knowing your bodies, Dad, LaMarcus Aldridge. So, there's two sides to this story. One, very fortunate he realized what happened. Two, very unfortunate that it's ending his career. So recently got bought out and signed a contract with the Brooklyn Nets with the rest of the world. Try to slide that one in there. So he signed a contract with the Brooklyn Nets. But then after one of the games recently, he felt his heart pounding, went to the hospital, got diagnosed with irregular heartbeat, and decided to retire suddenly. Obviously, players' health, like we were just talking about, most important thing, but just want to take a moment to reflect on LaMarcus Aldridge's career. What do you guys think?
I look at it. First, I'm starting to think that maybe something in the Brooklyn arena, players going and getting sick and, retiring. Who was Levert that got, he got diagnosed. So my whole thing with it is, I think that it's important for the players, especially in the off season, to get themselves checked out. A lot of them are so super athletic, and like you would think that they're like superhumans, like nothing can happen to these guys, and yet they as vulnerable as anybody else. The off season, a lot of these guys are working on getting working on their game and everything else, but I think the off season is very important for them to get checked out to make sure that their body is sound. I'm glad that Aldridge, found out. I was disappointed that it wound up ending his career. I mean, Aldridge put up some nice numbers, very good numbers, and I was hoping he would end it with a championship. But his health is more important, and I wish him well.
Listen, we're all Bulls fans here. So I know talking about LaMarcus Aldridge isn't the easiest thing to do.
Yeah.
For you guys that don't know, LaMarcus Aldridge was drafted by the Bulls and traded to Portland for Tyrese Thomas. That worked for one team. The other not so much. But, obviously basketball is not the big story with LaMarcus. He had a great career. Just one of the better bigs in the league for, ever since he was drafted for the last, decade and a half. He's been just a staple. And, he's known for his fadeaway jumpers and just shooting over guys. And he's really one of the first bigs to really be a consistent jump shooter, in that transition in the eras. But he's just one of the best to do it in recent times, and I'm glad that he knew himself and his body well enough, because a lot of guys, especially in a situation like he was in, being in Brooklyn, they seem like favorites in the Eastern Conference, and maybe even to win a championship. A lot of guys might want to like fight through that or just do whatever they can to keep playing and providing for their team. And I know this wasn't an easy decision for LaMarcus, but it was definitely the right thing for him to do. And hopefully, I don't know if this is allowed or not, but if the Nets do end up winning a championship, it would be nice if they could honor him in some way and, maybe even give him a ring or just something.
Oh, he definitely should get a ring.
Yeah, I hope he's like eligible for that because I know he was only on the team for a short time, but
I mean, even if he's not eligible, the owner could just buy an extra
well, yeah,
ring.
that's what I'm saying. Like, regardless, they should do something
the right thing
to honor him because, he in the few games that he did play for Brooklyn, he looked like he could be a really pivotal piece for that team. But I wish him nothing but the best, and I hope he stays healthy for the long run. And just kudos to a great career.
Yeah. You touched on it. I'm glad that he didn't go into like a sense of denial about his health, and he actually, he felt something different going on, and he went and got checked out. I know it wasn't a good, like you said, it wasn't a easy decision to make, but he did make a swift decision.
Yep.
This was something that the news came through like almost instantaneously. I wish him health moving forward in the next step of his life, whether that be as an analyst or a coach or, whatever he decides to go into next. And who knows, maybe he can get his situation controlled and this may not be the last we see of him on the court. He may make a last hurrah to go out on his own terms, walking off the court with health. We never know what's in store, but again, I'm happy that he was able to go out the way he did, and hopefully he can find success in other venues. Yeah,
absolutely. He wasn't always the biggest name, but 7-time All-Star, like he was a solid guy.
He was always respected.
Yeah,
around the whole
league too.
Yeah.
So, best of luck to LaMarcus.
Also, we talk about honoring LaMarcus. I think Portland needs to retire that number 12.
Yeah.
Ooh, I
think that would be a great tribute to LaMarcus for everything that he did for that franchise.
Yeah, I think that could be under serious consideration for sure.
I'd also like to see a one-day contract. Let him retire as a Blazer.
Yeah, that would be nice.
Yeah. No, that's definitely would be nice. Talking about going from one team to the other, though, going to the transfer portal of college basketball. So if you haven't heard, basically everyone is in the transfer portal. It is free agency on steroids. Last I checked, there was, I believe, over 1,200 students in the transfer portal.
Wow.
So there's teams with, I think there was at least one team with double digits players in the transfer. That's their whole roster.
Wow, basically.
So
feel bad for the coach.
Yeah. So,
or maybe it's because of the coach.
Could be. So there's been some talks about it. Some rule changes from the NCAA. Because with COVID, they gave people an extra year of eligibility, and also I believe they waived the redshirt year for transferring. Right. So I think that really opened the floodgates. I have some thoughts on that because coaches can leave and take a new job without having to sit out a year. So I think the players should, but this is also a lot where I don't necessarily think this is the best thing for college basketball, and especially these programs that are losing so many guys to the transfer portal. So trying to find, some common ground where it's okay for players because coaches can do it. So the players should also be able to do it, but it shouldn't also be the wild, wild west.
Yeah. We went from one extreme to the next extreme. I mean, you go from penalizing them to just making it a free for all. I see what you're saying there. It's there has to be a little bit more guidelines to it.
Yeah. This situation is very unique for the NCAA. I personally like it from just like a fan perspective. It's interesting seeing guys on, on different teams and how they're going to work out together. And also, like, these guys are transferring for a reason. So, they're trying to find a place that better suits them and, their talents or whatever it might be. So I don't think the players should be restricted from choosing their own destiny and being able to go to a place where they, can be at their best. But it also is rough because it's hard to have like a foundation for certain teams. And it's not only the transfer market, it's also guys that are, coming out of high school and they're declaring to certain schools and then they'll decommit and recommit or reclassify, and that'll change their that whole process. But just a constant movement, it's cool to see, but it could be a bit too much, like Matt was saying. There might have to be some sort of way to like balance it out a little bit because, it could get to a point where there's just too many guys going all over the place, and it's not leading to any sort of consistency or just, it's just kind of like a bit too random.
Yeah, I'm just glad that the players don't have to sit a year.
Yeah,
I think
I agree.
To me that's the most important thing. What this thing, for some reason, because North Carolina, my favorite team, had a couple of players do it, it seemed like everybody was doing. Like, I never seen so many people transferring. I mean, never.
Those that are just listening, he says North Carolina is his favorite team as he wears a North Carolina hat, a North Carolina Michael Jordan A Star Is Born shirt, and the Funko Pop that we have is Michael Jordan in UNC. So I think I just wanted to paint that picture for those that are just listening and not viewing this madness.
Yeah.
So my thing with the transfer and the portal, this gives players an opportunity to go home and play with their home team that might have not recruited them, but they played good enough on another team, and now their home team is okay with welcoming them home.
Yeah, they're on the radar.
Right. This also gives players opportunity that were injured and didn't get the playing time that they felt they should have gotten at a school that they were at, to go somewhere where they feel like they're going to get, more of a playing time. This gives players an opportunity that went to a team that was loaded with, 5-star players, and, they didn't fit in, and they feel like, they could go somewhere else and benefit from the move. So I understand the movement. I just think that NCAA has to do something in regards to limit the movement somehow. It's got to be where if you lost a certain amount of players, then you can get a certain amount of players back, but then they got to limit it to how many blue chippers and everything else, and I don't know. I mean, they got to work something out. I'm just glad that the players aren't being penalized for it, because the coaches aren't penalized for it.
Yeah, I think a prime example of the transfer market being beneficial is a guy like Johnny Juzang from UCLA. His freshman year he was at the University of Kentucky, and he wasn't even a starter on that team. So he transferred to UCLA, and he's leading that team to a national championship if Jalen Suggs doesn't hit a miracle 3-pointer. So it just goes to show you how a change of scenery could really make such a big difference for a lot of these guys.
Yeah.
So it's definitely a good thing, but it definitely needs to be regulated.
So is this a permanent change to the transfer portal, or is this due to COVID? Is this?
I think it was due to COVID, but now they're talking about it being a permanent thing where
it should be permanent,
where you would get one transfer. So you have a 4-year, 4 years of eligibility. You get one transfer without sitting out, and then the second time you transfer, then you will have to sit out a year. I I don't know if that's finalized. I know they were talking along those lines, but this year it was waived for everyone because of COVID, and players got an extra year of eligibility. But what Tim brought up, which I didn't think of before, was the impact of the incoming freshmen. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Because, I committed to Auburn, and I'm a big man.
And now someone transferred. Yeah,
Walker Kessler.
Yeah, now you got Walker transferring. Yeah, I'm not going to start over Walker.
Yeah. You might be blocked off.
By
a recent transfer. Yeah,
but a month ago, I was going to be the big man on campus,
which could be the reason why they committed to said school.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, that could work for some teams. It could benefit a team like North Carolina, where they lost their big men. Yeah. So now, if you one of them 5-star big men that committed somewhere else, and you say, "Wait a minute, if I go to North Carolina, I'm the star player." Yeah. So let me decommit from wherever I was at and commit to Carolina. It's it is a good thing that you brought it up, because I never thought in regards to the high school kids, but. Yeah, it's going to make a big difference. You're going to see a lot of people changing their mind.
A lot of moving pieces.
Yeah.
Definitely. No, it's definitely going to be interesting to see. It's going to be, when you watch a game next season, it's going to be a lot of new faces on different teams.
I'm just worried about, what we're going through in the NBA, where players are teaming up with their friends and, top talent and whatnot. I'm afraid of a school taking advantage of this now and putting together like a super squad of transfers.
I see that, but that was happening at the college level a long time already, where you get, especially since AAU basketball became a thing, you get a lot of guys like, I played AAU with this guy. I committed to this school, so let me try to convince him to go to this school so we could play together.
Mm-hmm. But that's one thing. But then to have established college basketball stars now teaming up, let's say to go to Duke or one of the other top schools, and it's going to take away from college basketball.
I get that, and that could be an issue, but I feel like more so now than ever in college basketball, I feel like guys are trying to make a name for themselves individually.
True.
And I think that's also part of the reason why there's so many transfers. It's because guys are trying to find their own spot where they can really prove themselves. And you see how much a good tournament run could help your draft projections. Mm-hmm. But you look like a guy like Cam Reddish a couple years ago at Duke. He was third fiddle to Zion and RJ, and he didn't have a great season at Duke. And his draft stock fell a little bit. And, so far he's been an average pro. But you see Zion and RJ flourishing. Mm-hmm. So maybe if Cam was on his own team, obviously I'm sure he enjoyed playing with those guys. But maybe if he had more of a role for another team, he would have proven himself more. That would have helped his career.
True.
Yeah, it's all very, very interesting. And talking someone else who is donning a new uniform, the Browns just signed Clowney. So what do you guys think of Clowney going to Cleveland?
I'm starting to think that this guy's just like a hired gun. He's just gonna just take the 1 year deal here and there, and I mean, if it's working for him, all the power to him. But I think it's a scary sight to see him lining up on the other side of Myles Garrett.
Yes.
That is going to be some tandem there.
What was it, a year or 2 years ago? Because COVID season throws me off, where they got a bunch of the offensive guys coming over, with Odell and
Jarvis Landry.
Yeah, they reformed their offense. Yeah. Now the defense is coming along.
It's starting to come along. Cleveland may not be a joke of a team.
Yeah, well, can they actually make some noise now?
Well, Cleveland was one of the more active teams in free agency, trying to build up their defense. They got Troy Hill from the Rams, a corner, and adding Clowney if he can stay healthy, and that's a big if. if he can stay healthy
and motivated.
Oh my God, is that defensive line going to be scary? I mean, I see Cleveland coming out of the AFC if he can stay healthy. That's how scary they are. Because they and remember they getting Odell back.
Yeah.
You know, so I mean, this team, they got a running game. They got a decent quarterback. They got great wide receivers. The offensive line got stronger. Defensive line. I mean, this is a scary team. This is it reminds me of the old Jim Brown, Cleveland Brown teams. You know, so Clowney, if Clowney stays healthy,
And that is the definition of generation sports.
yeah.
There you go.
Yeah, I love this move for Cleveland. It's a very low risk, high reward move for them. You know, it's a 1-year deal, $8 million, and Jadeveon Clowney has the potential to be just a perfect fit on that defensive line. You know, especially, you know, on the other side of a guy like Myles Garrett, because, you know, obviously Myles Garrett attracts so much attention in his own right. That just makes Jadeveon Clowney's job so much easier.
Can't double team both.
Yeah. So, you know, it's going to be a scary sight if those two click. And, you know, like you were saying, Dad, a lot of moves for Cleveland this offseason.
Yeah.
And, you know, they're looking like a real threat come playoff time. And, you know, they showed some signs of it last year, and they weren't 100% healthy. But, you know, if they could keep everything intact, then they're going to be a real big threat.
You heard it here first. The Rams against the Browns in the Super Bowl.
Bold prediction.
That's very bold.
Bring that one to Vegas.
I want to see the odds on that.
Yeah.
Put your money up.
Yeah, so I think this is all very interesting. But when it comes to football, it always comes down to one thing and one thing only: health.
Oh, yeah.
You know, we talk about it all the time, but football, it has the most injuries, so it's talent, but it's also luck when you have to have the guy stay on the field. So best of luck to the Cleveland Browns. Hopefully some exciting stuff to come. And now moving on to garbage time. So who's starting up today?
I think Jay's starting today.
All right, go ahead, Jay.
All right, so
Let's do it.
If you can go and give one athlete, one player of any sport, an injury-free career, who would you pick?
Go ahead, Tim. You start.
Yeah, Tim.
Really, me?
This is your favorite question.
I mean, it's tough. You know, there's a lot of guys that you could consider for this question, and a lot of my favorite players in a couple different sports have had a lot of injury derailed careers. But you know, my favorite basketball player of all time is Derrick Rose, and you know, Derrick Rose is almost like the poster of bad injuries.
Yep.
You know, just so much potential. Youngest MVP ever, even if LeBron probably should have won it. But, you know, he just he just showed so much promise, and you know, playing in Chicago, his hometown, bringing the team to newfound success after, you know, some struggles. It really sucks too, because, you know, we were talking about it earlier, how, you know, Tibbs loves to play his guys down the stretch, and you know, it's a game against Philly, who was pretty bad at the time. We were winning by a lot of points, and there wasn't a lot of time left on the clock, and you know, it seemed like Derrick Rose's athleticism hurt him in that situation. He was almost too athletic, because you know, all that jumping and you know, just outstretched, you know, athletic movement, it put so much stress on his body, and it just pushed him to the limit. And it sucks that the injuries kept coming, and they were so severe every time. But I think D Rose is also one of my favorite players because of how he rejuvenated his career, and how he recovered, I can't imagine how hard it'd be to face all that, all those hardships and just the same thing over and over and having to recover and rehab and just all the stress mentally and physically. And he's proven that, he fought through it all, and he's, obviously he's not the same player he was, but he's still a really good contributor to a Knicks team that's playing really well now. And, he's just shown that determination and, just never giving up. And that's also one of the reasons why I love D Rose so much.
Kudos to D Rose, because he's got to be one of the most mentally strong people in the world. I mean, to constantly have to go through the same rehab because you continue to injure yourself. I mean, the toll that it takes on you mentally. A lot of people would have gave up and called it a career, but he didn't. But my athlete is Bo Jackson. All-star in baseball and in football. Bo was to me the most athletic player I've ever seen. I mean, the guy was running over Brian Bosworth and everybody in the league, and he was hitting bombs and climbing up fences and throwing people out, from the outfield. I mean, if this guy's hip never got injured and he had to get hip replacement, I mean, who knows?
Yeah.
I mean, this guy would have put up numbers in both sports. He, to me, was somebody that I enjoy watching, and everything came so easy to him. I mean, when he went up that fence and caught the ball, and then to throw the home plate, I mean, come on, man.
Unreal.
I mean, yeah, it was unreal, and watching him, run the ball in football. I mean, he either hit the hole and it was gone, and just looking back at the defenders, or he was, if you was in front of him, he's going to run you over. So Bo Jackson's my guy.
My favorite Bill Jackson quote is, "Football was his hobby."
Yeah.
Wow.
He said he was a baseball player and football was his hobby.
Wow. What a hobby. What a perfectionist.
Hey.
Wow.
My athlete is Grant Hill. Although, obviously injuries did have a major impact on his career, he did still play a long career. He had, I think, like 18 seasons, even though some of them are very limited games. But we saw Grant Hill in his young stardom, where he was an all-star, I think, his first 4 seasons.
It was like 4 out of his first 5 seasons
Yeah,
or something in Detroit.
Yeah, something crazy like that. But the injuries took away his prime. That's the biggest thing for me. So he was that good as a 22-year-old to like 25, 26. Just as he was getting to his prime is when the injuries impacted. So he went from the young star to the older role player.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But that chunk in the middle,
we never got to see his best.
Yeah, we didn't see that chunk in the middle. Yeah. I think that's why he's my athlete.
That's a really good
one. A lot of people call Grant Hill LeBron James before LeBron James. Yeah. So who knows what his peak could have been if he had stayed healthy.
That point forward, there's a season here, he 21-9-7.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
He was 24 years old.
Yeah.
Who knows how good he could have gotten?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Unbelievable. So my athlete is Ken Griffey Jr. The guy who, even through all the injuries, he's still a Hall of Famer. Still put up astronomical numbers. Still had the prettiest swing ever, I think, personally. But without the nagging injuries and missing so much time, would this guy have eclipsed 800 home runs in his career? It's just the sky's the limit with what he could have accomplished had he not missed so much time.
Yeah, he goes from Hall of Fame career to the best ever.
Yeah. He could have been up there. We could have been talking about him with Mike Trout. So that's my choice there, Ken Griffey Jr.
Good choice.
All right. Dad, you want to go?
Sure. So, what city do you think deserves a team of any sport?
Okay, I'll go first.
Right.
I just came back from vacation from Puerto Rico, so I'm going to go with Puerto Rico. It's part of the United States. They have some type of infrastructure in place for a baseball team. You know, granted, it would need a huge upgrade. But I think that Puerto Rico would benefit from having, you know, that much influx in revenue and money and jobs and stuff. I think it would be a great addition to that.
So San Juan?
Oh yeah, San Juan. Listen, it's already the place to go when you go out there. So why not add another reason to visit?
Yeah, MLB was gonna play games. You know, when they do those travel, destination games. They did one in London. They did Mexico City. You know, San Juan was on that list.
I'd like to see them like really take charge of the money influx, though. You know, I mean, they were gonna benefit a little bit, but it would mainly be I believe
that's a
the
weekend.
Marlins.
Yeah, it was the Marlins versus the Mets that were supposed to be playing there. But yeah, that's a great place. For me, I think, you know, there's been some talks of baseball potentially, you know, adding teams. I think the North Carolina, Nashville area is very intriguing because there's a decent gap between DC and Atlanta where, you know, the teams.
It's like a no man's land.
Yeah, there's plenty of space there, and you got some good cities. I think North Carolina, you can pick a city in there, Raleigh, or Nashville, Tennessee. I think those two cities, would be great destinations if baseball decides to expand.
We also see a lot of prospects come out of that area.
Yeah,
you know, there's a lot.
Virginia,
a lot of the schools produce a lot of good pitching, and you know.
Oh yeah,
Makes
UNC
sense.
and absolutely.
All right, listen, guys. I feel like this is the obvious answer, and you know I know we were all thinking it, but I'm gonna go with Seattle. You know, of course the Supersonics holds a place in everyone's hearts. You know, they became the Oklahoma City Thunder in 2008. But I think there needs to be basketball in Seattle again. And, you know, there was some rumors with the new purchasing of the Minnesota Timberwolves for a possible relocation. That would be cool. You know, even if there were expansion teams, that would be cool. I just think there needs to be NBA basketball in Seattle. It's just a great basketball city. A lot of great talent coming from the Seattle area. You talk about guys like Isaiah Thomas, you know, Jamal Crawford, Zach LaVine, just to name a few guys. You know, a lot of talent coming from that area. A lot of guys who, you know, a lot of people who just love the game of basketball. I think that would be a great place to, you know, start again and, you know, rebuild that fan base and that excitement for basketball in Seattle.
Well, my choice would be Vegas for the NBA.
I like this one.
And what better place for Showtime than Vegas?
Yep.
You know, I mean, this is a city that has a lot of people visit it. A lot. You know? And you put an NBA franchise out there, I think it's a no-brainer. I think the franchise is going to make a lot of money. The players are going to enjoy going there to play. I think
James Harden requested a trade during this conversation.
Dennis Rodman's coming out of retirement.
Michael Jordan is coming out of retirement.
Hey, that's a good team.
Right.
But I think Vegas is a no-brainer. The Raiders, the Oakland Raiders moved to Vegas as a football team. And why not add a basketball team there?
They already do summer league in Vegas.
Yeah.
You know,
I like it.
It's a good place.
I like it. And the NBA doesn't have to deal with the heat either. You know, the
indoors.
rise in temperature. It's an indoor sport. Yeah.
Absolutely. My question, comes because there's been a lot of conversations from CC Sabathia. Is Shohei Ohtani the most talented baseball player ever? Not the best, just raw talent. You know how they say 5-tool player? CC called Shohei a 6-tool player because of he has all 5 tools hitting, plus he can pitch.
All right.
What are your thoughts? Yes, no, and why?
I'd say yes. We haven't seen this type of two-way player. I mean, I don't remember anyone ever being this good.
You remember Babe Ruth?
Yeah.
Oh, well, yeah, there you go. Yeah, Babe Ruth, but
But we didn't see.
We didn't see.
Yeah.
There you go. But
generations here.
Yeah, the candy bar.
Right.
As good as Babe Ruth is, I wouldn't call him a 5-tool player. I don't think he had the speed and
he also
not the
didn't
defense.
play against black people.
Yeah, that too. Yeah. So, I think he definitely can be considered the best as far as being a 6-tool player. But I think there's guys that probably could do and just don't have that opportunity to be on both sides. A guy like Jacob deGrom, who I think if honestly he's hitting 600, if he had more reps, more at bats, and and a chance to train as a hitter and fielder, he could be up there. I mean, there's no way there's no way Shohei's gonna pitch better than deGrom.
But I mean, he was a shortstop, so
yeah, that's what I'm saying. Most of these players were, most of the pitchers were position players, so they do have the talent to do these things. They just don't have the opportunity that he does.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, when I look at players, in that likeness, I'm thinking Dave Winfield, who was drafted by all 3 major sports. This guy was super talented. I mean, for you to get drafted by baseball, basketball, and football, you got to be a super athlete.
Yeah.
Then I also take into consideration Bo Jackson, all-star in both baseball and football. I mean, there's super talented athletes out there. So I don't know if I would say he's the the best athlete ever, but he's one of them. He's definitely one of them.
So this question is a little weird for me. Shohei Ohtani is slowly becoming arguably my favorite player in all of baseball.
There we go.
I just love what he does. But I don't think he's there yet. I think he has the potential and the makeup to become, to get in this conversation of most talented ever. But I just want to see a little bit more out of him because obviously the potential is there and we've seen what he can do, throwing triple digits and hitting the ball as fast as anyone and as far as anyone. He has the speed as well. One of the faster guys in the league, which a lot of people don't realize. I think he's the most unique player to ever play baseball.
Good word.
But I don't know if he's the most talented. But I think he can be if we see more consistency out of him. Obviously he's dealt with some injuries, and it's super hard trying to pitch and hit, and managing all that. He's definitely the most unique player in baseball, I think. And I think he definitely could be the most talented, but I don't think he's there just yet.
And before you go, Matt, you see what happens when you let players from other countries play our game? It'll surprise you, because too often we feel like, we dominate the sport. But yet, here's a guy that was playing in Japan and, they took a chance with him in the major leagues, and now he's one of the best players in the league now. So giving other people from other countries an opportunity, this is where you get, the best of the best.
Yeah.
And this is where you could say the world's best.
Yeah. I mean, to me, it's, there are a lot of great players, but I happen to agree. He's the most talented player I've ever seen. Not necessarily the best, but the most talented. Being able to pitch, being able to hit, hitting 451-foot homers, some of the top exit velo in the game. Mm-hmm. He has the third fastest first to third sprint speed in baseball this year. Like, it's ridiculous what he can do. It seems like he can do everything. Tim brought up a great point. He needs to stay healthy for a full season.
Yes. Yeah.
I think that's the next step is to stay healthy. I also want to see more of these two-way players.
Yeah, of course.
Hunter Green was drafted by the Reds a few years ago. Mm-hmm. They announced him as a pitcher, but in high school he pitched and hit, and they were seriously considering him doing both. They leaned to just him pitching. Yeah. But hopefully this opens some of these opportunities to see some of these two-way players.
Well, I think that's the advantage he had, is that he was established already as a two-way player when he came to the league. Whereas young players coming up the ranks of the minor leagues, they're almost forced to choose between one or the other.
Yeah.
So I think that's the advantage that he has and in showcasing that talent.
Yeah, so hopefully they allow some of these young guys to do both through the minors. And who knows, maybe that replay, that DH rule that we talked about earlier might force the hand for some of these. Yeah. Because if you can have a starting pitcher and he's your DH for that game, or maybe he doesn't DH the game he pitches, but you can use him as a pinch hitter because now you have a shortened bench.
True.
Yeah.
Because you see that.
He's a bat, and then he can just pitch the next half inning.
Yeah.
The only thing that will make him better if he could throw with both hands. That'll be something else.
That's the next step in the evolution.
All right, Tim.
All right, so we're a couple weeks into the Major League Baseball season so far. I want you guys to tell me your biggest surprise player or team so far in the young season.
I'll start this one off, and my biggest surprise team is the Yankees.
Okay.
All this talent, all this money, and they have the worst record in baseball. I mean, what is going on with this team? In 2 games, I'm not even talking about the whole series. In the first 2 games with Tampa, they struck out 27 times.
That's an entire game.
Yeah.
The equivalent to an entire game's worth of outs.
I mean, I know, there's COVID out there, but somebody needs to get an eye doctor for the Yankees because they're blind right now. I mean, it's...
Or spackle up the holes in those bats.
Yeah. And I always said it, I mean, it's great watching the long ball, and I know that, Major League Baseball is looking for, everybody to try to hit the ball out of the ballpark and everything else. That's all good. But when it comes down to it, the teams that win are the teams that have the guys that hit for average. And
get on base.
Yeah. And the Yankees have a lot of guys that hit for power, but when they're bad, they're real bad. And the other thing is the Yankees, you never get the 2 guys on the field at the same time. Yeah. They're always injured. Always. So the Yankees been a big disappointment, and they're my surprise team.
I'm going to stay in the AL East, and I'm going to go with the Boston Red Sox.
Yep.
Obviously, there's been a lot of talk of that division being a very good and competitive division. Baltimore excluded, even though they're playing much better than people thought in the early season.
Even better than Yankees.
Yeah. Well, everyone is. But Boston having the best record in the AL, the biggest run differential. I mean, I challenge people to name 2 starters on that rotation. Like, obviously the offense is there, but, their biggest question mark was, can they pitch?
Yeah, and there's a team that gave up Mookie Betts.
Yeah. Yeah.
And another big thing with Boston, too, is Chris Sale is scheduled on making a return later on the season. So, you talk about that rotation, it's very weak, but if you can add a guy like Chris Sale and he could be, a version of his former self, that would be a huge boost for them.
You know what's crazy about Boston is they went all in to win a World Series, right? Then everybody left them, and now look where they at.
They're in a better spot now.
Yeah, I mean, again, it's still a fairly small sample size,
it
but
is.
the offense was never the question. It was the pitching. The bullpen looks pretty good. If the starting pitching could stay decent.
Well, Boston has the advantage of being able to add if necessary. If they feel like it's
They're
prudent
making a
for
run.
them to add. Yeah,
I like Verdugo.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You got Xander Bogaerts. You got
Rafael Devers is
Devers,
red
yeah.
hot this year.
Yeah.
JD Martinez hitting
oh yeah
3 home runs
he's
in a
back.
game.
yeah. I'm gonna go with my biggest surprise and maybe it shouldn't be that big of a surprise, but the former Met players. You have Steven Matz, who's pitching great so far with Toronto. You have the catcher, William Ramos. Yeah, he's got more home runs this season already than he had all last year in 45 games.
I'm pretty sure he leads the league in hard hit rate as well.
Yeah, which when the Mets first added him, I loved his bat. Last year, I don't know what happened. He lost bat speed and whatnot, but he's killing and
Lowry.
Lowry even getting onto the field is already a plus. I mean,
Jed Lowry is playing baseball.
Yeah, he stole 2 years worth of salary from the Mets, and now he's back on the field and actually playing well.
Yeah, he had more plate appearances in opening weekend than he did in the 2 years at the Mets.
Really sad.
Wow.
Yeah.
I think that Matz is the type of pitcher similar to Kenny Rogers. Rogers played for the Mets and the Yankees. Some players cannot play in New York.
Yeah. He's from New York.
New York.
Yeah.
But maybe
that maybe he's
works
from New York
against
that stood in the house.
Yeah, the added pressure.
Yeah.
You got friends and family at every game.
I like Matz, and I'm wishing him well. I hope he continues this all season, and I hope he kills the Yankees.
Yes.
All right, so my biggest surprise so far is the Atlanta Braves.
Okay.
And, you look at their roster, their lineup and their rotation, even not having a guy like Soroka to start off the season, it's just hard to fathom how they're the worst team in the NL East right now. But it just comes down to their bats have been ice cold other than Ronald Acuna Jr., who has been one of the best hitters in baseball so far this year. He has been the polar opposite of the rest of this Atlanta Braves lineup. And I'm not worried about the Braves because their team is just too talented to continue struggling the way they've been struggling. And these guys will definitely turn it around. But, if this slump continues for too long, this could hurt their placing in the NL East because the NL East is one of the better divisions in baseball. So if they slide a little bit too much, they might lose out on maybe a first place spot and they might have to play a wild card game. And, wild card is very wild. It could end up any way. It's win or lose. It's win or go home. You got to put it all out there. But I know they don't want to be in that situation. And they have the talent to be a first place team in this division, but they've been struggling a lot as of late.
I wonder if there's something that we didn't know because most of the predictions for the NL East had the Braves like in third place, even with all that talent.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering if there was something that other people saw that we didn't.
Yeah. I mean that division is tough.
Yeah.
Everyone has talent.
A lot of talent.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Miami's clearly the least amount of talent, but they have the young talent who might surprise you.
Yeah.
You just don't know they're not household names yet.
They have the advantage of the unknown. Yeah.
Yep. That's true.
Well, thanks everyone for tuning in to Generation Sports. We'll be back in 2 weeks. Until then, remember to like, comment, and subscribe. Stop texting us and comment. So if you got something to say, don't text any of us or DM us. Just comment. It really helps the algorithm and all that fun stuff. So Thanks again. We appreciate it, and see you next time. Peace.
See ya.